Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah. Bismillah walhamdulillah. Wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Alhamdulillah, we're blessed tonight to have with us our dear sister, Linda Sarsour, who so many of you know. She's going to be speaking to us about the importance of the Muslim vote and why at this critical juncture in time, each one of us has a responsibility to recognize individually the role that we play in not only getting ourselves directly involved, but ensuring that our friends, our family members, the communities and networks that we're a part of are doing whatever it is that we can to leverage and exercise the clout that our community definitely possesses, and recognize as well the critical role that we play in this upcoming presidential election. And so I'm going to do a quick intro on our sister Linda. She's going to talk and share some of her insights, wisdoms, and experiences for our benefit. And then we're going to have some Q&A. For those of you who are joining on any of our social media platforms, if you want to ask a question, then we'd recommend that you join in on the Zoom. And for those of you who are on Zoom, if you have questions for Linda, at any point in time, something pops up into your head, feel free to put it in the Q&A box as opposed to the chat box, so that we'll have everything there. We'll try to get to as many as we can within the time constraints that we have. I know many of you are joining in from different parts of the country and some of you from different parts of the world. If at any point in time a prayer time comes upon you, we're not going to make deliberate stops for any of the prayers that are coming in because people are in different time zones, but feel free to take a step away and join us. And if you miss any part of it, it's going to be recorded, inshallah, so that you can come back and catch anything that you might have missed. And so for those of you who don't know our sister Linda, Linda is an award-winning racial justice and civil rights activist, community organizer, and every Islamophobe's worst nightmare, as well as a mother of 3. She's a Palestinian Muslim American born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. She's the former executive director of the Arab American Association of New York and the co-founder of the first Muslim online organizing platform, MPower Change. Linda was one of the national co-chairs of the largest single-day protest in U.S. history, the Women's March on Washington. She has been named amongst 500 of the most influential Muslims in the world. She has won numerous awards, including Champion of Change from the Obama administration. She was recognized as one of Fortune's 50 greatest leaders and featured as one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people in the world in 2017. Linda is a 2019 Roddenberry Fellow and just released her highly anticipated book, We Are Not Here to Be Bystanders, a memoir of love and resistance. She's a frequent media commentator on issues impacting Muslim communities, Middle East affairs, and criminal justice reform, and most recognized for her transformative intersectional organizing work and movement building. With that, I'm going to pass it over to my sister, Linda Sarsour. So Linda, feel free to take it away, inshallah.
Thank you so much, Imam Khalid, and to my family at the Islamic Center of NYU. Many of you probably know this, but this morning, Imam Khalid, along with Imam Zaid Shakir, Sister Aisha Al-Adawiya, Imam Dawood Walid, our beloved sister and chaplain Amina Darwish, and Imam Muhammad Mendez came and joined me in a virtual 26 hours of prayer for Breonna Taylor. So we did a kind of a prayer-a-thon. So many of you know, I'm actually talking to you right now from Louisville, Kentucky. I moved out here around August 7th, and I've been out here ever since to fight for our sister. And we've marched and we've organized and we've protested and we've trained activists and community members here. We've done food distribution. We've really built community here. And really there is nothing more that we can do to demand justice for our sister Breonna Taylor. We've done civil disobedience. And finally we said, you know, we have to pray. We have to pray from the deepest of our hearts. So we organized 26 hours for 26 years of the life that Breonna lived. Oftentimes when people are murdered at the hands of police, we talk a lot about their murder, we talk a lot about their death, and we decided to pray for the many years that Brianna lived, and pray for justice, and pray for her family, and to alleviate their anxieties and their frustrations and their hurt and their pain. And of course, many of you already know that Imam Khalid Latif always brings tears to my eyes, prayed from the deepest part of his heart, and moved not only those of us who are Muslims who are on and listening, but moved people across the country. The comments and the feedback that we received from the beautiful 1 hour that our Muslim community shared with their other interfaith brothers and sisters. There were many pastors from the AME church, from the Baptist church. We have Jewish sisters and brothers, and many others. And to be able to put forth the best that our community has to offer and what truly my Islam means to me. Not everybody defines faith in the same way that I do. I wholeheartedly believe that we cannot just be people who pray and fast when there's so much hurt and trauma and pain and violence that is around us, when there are oppressors that are literally surrounding our communities and our beloved communities. I believe that faith is also standing up for justice. Our faith is also using the blessings that Allah has given us so that we could alleviate harm against his creation, that we can help to be stewards of justice, because our God is a big God. Our God is a just God. And when I heard about Breonna Taylor in New York City, as you all know, I'm from Brooklyn, I thought to myself, how could it be that we could be fighting for justice across this country and calling and saying Black Lives Matter, but there's a woman who was murdered in Louisville, Kentucky, a Black woman, an essential worker during a global pandemic, who has not received justice. She was murdered over 6 months ago. Until today, there still has not been justice served in her case. And so I'm here, sisters and brothers, in hopes that not only we get justice for Breonna Taylor's, but more people see that our Muslim communities at the front lines of fighting for justice for the most marginalized people. It's why I'm actually here today with the Islamic Center of NYU to talk to you about this election. A lot of people have been asking me this question, and then we've had so many conversations in our community about this election. And I want people to understand that I'm not anybody else in our community. I am myself, and you know me very well. I will never ask you to do something that I myself have not already done, that I have myself not thought about very deeply. I want people to understand that electoral work is just one tool that we have in a big toolbox. I do not believe that our community is going to get free, that we are going to liberate our communities, that we are going to, alleviate all the harm and suffering and pain against Black people, against Indigenous people, against undocumented people, against marginalized people in this country. That is not, for me, the purpose of elections. For me, elections is about a long-term project, a long-term commitment to building political power in our communities. And so for us, sisters and brothers, I understand the conversations that are being had in the Muslim American community. And I know at the Islamic Center at NYU, they do not endorse candidates. They don't work on behalf of candidates. We at MPower Change, in our My Muslim Vote campaign, we do not endorse candidates either. We are people who are interested in building political power around issues, around making sure that our communities are represented at the table, that we don't just have a seat at the table, but in fact, our agenda is on the table. I am committed to building the type of influence that allows us not only to make reforms, but to transform our communities, our neighborhoods, our governments. And we have seen so much progress, sisters and brothers, over the years. We cannot underestimate that because of our community and because of the commitment of our community and because of the courage of many in our community, that we have been able to elect people who represent our values as Muslim Americans. And to be quite honest with you, not all those that we have helped to elect across the country were Muslims, but they were people that believed in healthcare as a human right. They believed in this radical idea that every child deserves access to a high quality public education, regardless of the zip code that they live in. People who believed in and ending the endless and unjust wars that have ravished many of the communities that our families come from as children of immigrants and immigrants ourselves. People who believe that, college students should not have to graduate and being chained down to so much debt that they cannot start a new life and start their careers. We've been able to do this work together. And so what I'm saying to you about this election and about not just you as an individual participating in this election, we don't need just individuals who are going to just commit to vote. We need individuals who are going to commit to do the work. Sisters and brothers, as I just told you, it's been over We've just had a 26 hours of prayer that started at 12 p.m. yesterday on Sunday. And right now it is 6:45 Eastern time right now in Louisville, Kentucky. I haven't slept yet. I decided that I'm going to sleep tonight. I am exhausted, both physically and also my soul is exhausted. But you know me very well. You know me. I'm going to keep doing the work because I know how much at stake there is for our communities. This election is not about the lesser of two evils. And if anybody tries to describe to you that this election is about the lesser of two evils, they don't in fact know what they're talking about. This election in 2020 is about whether we as Muslim Americans want to be part of a story where we are at the front lines, at the forefront of defeating fascism in America. This administration that is in office right now is our pharaoh. They are the oppressors, and they are very open about it. And they have committed extreme atrocities against people in our communities that we love. Because of this administration, there are Muslims in our communities, our sisters and brothers from countries like Yemen and Syria and Somalia and Nigeria and other countries, about 14 countries, that are unable to be reunited with their families. I want you to think about how you tonight can go to bed, put your children to bed. Some of you may live with your parents and be able to be around those that you love. Some of you may be celebrating graduations and celebrating weddings and being around your family members when there are Yemeni fathers in our community that cannot be reunited with their children or with their wives, and Somali families that are unable to be united with their families. That is not okay, sisters and brothers. That is not something that should be happening in our country in 2020. We have seen the uptick in deportations, in the terrorization of undocumented communities. There are people that I live around that tell me they don't even feel safe going to work because they don't know if they're going to be able to come home to their children. I know many of you will say, well, there were deportations that were happening under the previous administration, and you would be absolutely 100% correct. But I promise you that under this administration, whatever harm that we were seeing in previous administrations has been exasperated by this administration. This is an administration that removed critical race theory from curriculums. They removed the word immigrants from the USCIS, which is the Immigration Services. I mean, we live under an administration that continues to implement a white nationalist agenda. We already know where they stand on foreign policy issues, whether it's on Palestine, or whether we see the type of relationship that our administration wants to have with countries like Iran and others, and just the provocation of war. And we cannot afford any more wars in the Middle East. We cannot afford more civilians being murdered at the hands of our taxpayer dollars. Sisters and brothers, we have an administration that does not believe in science. They do not believe in climate change. And our planet is literally burning down around us. I'm not even saying this from a figurative place. Literally in California, there are fires that have continued to blaze, some recently and some for months now. We cannot afford an administration who does not believe in climate change. Sisters and brothers, over 192,000 people. I just want to say that number one more time so that people understand the severity of what I'm talking about. 193,000 people in our country, some of whom Muslims, some of them may have been your grandparents or your parents. They could have been your neighbors. They could have been people that you loved. We lost Muslims in our community in New York City, people that we know, people in my family who have been taken by this COVID pandemic, knowing that this administration knew exactly what was coming with this pandemic and decided to lie and hide information from the American people. Sisters and brothers, we cannot afford this administration for 4 more years. So here's where I need you to come in. I need you, sisters and brothers, to understand that this election is about defeating fascism, but it's also about solidarity. Are you and will you be in solidarity with marginalized people? Will you be in solidarity with Muslim communities who have been traumatized by this administration? Will you make a decision in this election and say to yourself, you know what? This is not about me and my feelings. This is not about my self-righteous politics. This is about, can I, as a person, put my particular positions aside with the choices that we have laid forward to us, and say that I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to engage in local elections. I'm going to register to vote. I'm going to register my mother and my father and my uncle and my aunt and my neighbors, and I'm going to go to the polls. Sisters and brothers, I'm going to tell you this, and not a lot of people are happy with me when I say this stuff. You cannot be a person that complains online and talks about the lesser of two evils and tells me why everybody's bad, and without your work plan about what you are willing to do to make it better. Sisters and brothers, in order for us to get to a point where we have an election, where we have choices of people that truly align with our values and principles, we have to work for it. It is our responsibility to build the political revolution and the political will for there to be candidates that align with our values of compassion, of kindness, of service, of justice. This is not something that you just sit at home and wait every 4 years for some magical candidate to appear for you to support. Many of you know, as an individual, as Linda Sarsour, I supported Senator Bernie Sanders for the second time. And we understand that we just had so much more work to do. But what we did do together is we made issues like Medicare for all mainstream issues. We talked about the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement. We talked about Palestine and Palestinians in a way that has never historically been spoken about at that high of a level in politics. We have made so much gains, sisters and brothers, when we elected Rashida Tlaib, when we elected Ilhan Omar, when we elected Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and when we elected the Cori Bushes of the world. That is part of our work to do. Our work is about a long-term strategy that is 20, 30, 40 years from now. Let me just give you a little bit of a glimpse of what an administration like this one, 4 more years, can do to our communities. Sisters and brothers, the Republican Party, they have been organizing for at least 3 decades. They were waiting for this day to come so that they can have an administration like this, the one to implement the things that they've been wanting for a really long time. And if folks, if it's not clear to you what the Republican Party has done, what they really have done is that they just wanted the Supreme Court. They wanted to be able to appoint federal judges in states across America. And just in the last 3.5 years of this administration, Donald Trump and his administration have appointed 1 out of every 4 federal judges across this country, which equals to about 300 judges. So what we're doing is what we're risking in another 4 years is allowing this type of administration, a xenophobic, anti-Semitic, Islamophobic, homophobic administration, a sexist, misogynist administration, an administration that is so blatantly anti-immigrant and anti-Black, that is willing to unconditionally support law enforcement at the expense of our communities and Black people and the sanctity of Black life. So what we're trying to avoid in this election is giving this administration access to more Supreme Court justice appointments. Sisters and brothers, we cannot afford another conservative on the Supreme Court. We as Muslims know very well what it feels like to go to the Supreme Court with a just cause and to lose in the Supreme Court. As you all know, we sued the Donald Trump administration on the Muslim ban. In fact, I was one of the first lawsuits the Monday after the announcement came back in 2017. It was a lawsuit called Sarsour versus Donald Trump. And I was putting my name publicly out there on behalf of the Jane Does and the John Does in our community that did not feel the courage of putting their names out publicly to put their names on and their family's name that they were representing in that Supreme Court case. There were many other cases by the National Immigration Law Center, the ACLU, and many, many other organizations across the country. As you know, our lawsuit went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And we prayed to Allah that Allah bring us justice in this case. And just so you know how serious the Supreme Court is, our Muslim community lost. We lost, sisters and brothers, in the Supreme Court. It is now the law of the land, the law in the United States of America. It's case law that any president, she or he, can in the future designate any country and put them on the list to be banned from immigrating to the United States of America. That's the precedent that was set by this administration. What makes you think, sisters and brothers, and especially those of you who are not either the children of immigrants from these countries or immigrants yourselves from these countries, what makes you think that you're more honorable than a Yemeni American or a Somali American or someone who is Syrian American or a Syrian refugee who wants to be reunited with their families? Sisters and brothers, what makes us think that this administration would not put countries like Egypt or Morocco or Pakistan or Bangladesh or any other countries that we come from on that list next time around? Sisters and brothers, this is not an election to be playing around with. This is not an election for us to play personal politics. We have to understand that Allah has told us that when we have the opportunity to alleviate harm and suffering, that we make that decision every time. I also want to remind people that sometimes the right thing to do is the hardest thing to do. And that, I want to say that one more time. Sometimes the right thing to do is the hardest thing to do. And so I'm asking you to do the hard things, sisters and brothers, and to join us. And so it's not, again, I mean, many of us who are from New York, as you all know, New York is a blue state. So in New York City, if you want to be self-righteous and you want to vote whatever way you want to vote, you actually have the opportunity to do that. But many people who live in swing states, many Muslim Americans who are swing voters in states like Michigan and states like Ohio and Virginia and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Florida and Texas and Arizona and Nevada, you can't do that. You really can't. I'm calling upon you, sisters and brothers, to just come to a higher moral place. And your sister, Linda Sarsour, promises you that the day after that election, if it is that we defeat this fascist in the White House, if we defeat this fascist administration, I promise you that I'm going to still be out on the streets. I promise you that I will organize the day after. I will be protesting to ensure that this next administration understands that we will hold them accountable to our communities. I am committed to that. You already know me well enough. I am a woman of my word. I have sacrificed my family. I have sacrificed my body. I have sacrificed my career to be on the front lines and to speak truth to power. And I will speak truth to power to anybody. I don't care if they're Democrats or Republicans. I don't care if they're Muslims in our community or if they're non-Muslims. I will say the truth to whoever needs to hear the truth. And the truth of the matter is that we have to organize in this election. But we need your support. Lots of times when I come to events or I'm engaging with the Muslim American community, people say, MashaAllah, Sister Linda, I'm so proud of the work that you do. I support the work that you do. And I really, sisters and brothers, that means a lot to me. I know that there have been many people out there that have made dua for me and my family. And I say to people all the time, why am I safe? Why can I still be here and talk to all of my friends and the friends and allies of the Islamic Center of NYU? It's because of the du'as of people in our community, the du'as of my brokenhearted mother, the du'as of people in my family, du'as of others and prayers of other people of faith who have prayed for me. So I believe in the power of our community and your prayers. But what I need you to do also is to understand that Islam is a practical faith. It requires action. It requires us to engage in actual action, tangible things and productive things. So what I came here to do for you in this convening by the Islamic Center of NYU is I want you to join our My Muslim Vote campaign. I promise you it's a campaign that aligns with your values. It's a campaign that gives you access and allows you to call voters, to text voters in states that need you to remind them that they need to go to the polls. I understand that we are in a global pandemic, sisters and brothers, and a lot of people are saying it's a global pandemic. What are we going to do? One thing that I want you to do is if you are in a state where there's early voting, sisters and brothers, please go out and vote. I know there's opportunities for us to be able to request absentee ballots, which MPower Change, the organization that I'm the executive director of, gives you information. We are going to be putting out multilingual videos in Arabic, in Bangla, in Urdu, and many other languages, so that we can get our communities instructions about how to get your absentee ballots for those of you who want to vote from home. But I'm going to be very honest with you. I do not trust this election. I do not trust this administration. So if your grandmother, your mom, people who are immunocompromised or people with disabilities, please request your absentee ballot. For those of you who are who are not immunocompromised, who, mashallah, Allah gave you your limbs and you are able to walk and leave the house, I want you to go vote in person. I want you to wear your mask, wear gloves if you have to, but please go cast your ballot at a polling site. It's important for us, sisters and brothers, to vote like our lives depended on it. Vote like Black people's lives depended on it. Vote like undocumented lives depended on it. Vote like our Muslim sisters and brothers across the world's lives depended on it. Because honestly, sisters and brothers, wallahi, our lives depend on this. We can see, we are not prepared for what another 4 years of this administration can do to our communities. In their next 4 years, they have nothing to lose, sisters and brothers. So please join us. Go to mymuslimvote.org. And I want you to go there, sign up, register to be a volunteer. We are also doing a phone bank with the Islamic Center at NYU. If you look in the comments, there will be some links in there so that you can register to be part of a phone bank. We do virtual phone banks. You could do your own phone bank. The point is that we want to be in community. We want to be able to encourage our Muslim sisters and brothers in swing states to go to the polls, to vote, sisters and brothers. This is for me an Islamic obligation. When you have the opportunity to participate in the democracy, in the society in which you live, you are to take that opportunity. From a more movement perspective, I always say to people all the time that sisters and brothers, especially those of us who are not African American, there are people who died for our right to vote. You know, recently we lost Congressman John Lewis. We have remembered many activists and organizers in the civil rights movement who literally shed blood on the streets of our country so immigrants and children of immigrants like us could have the right to vote, so Black women can have the right to vote, so Black people can have the right to vote, so Indigenous people can have the right to vote. So I'm calling you, sisters and brothers, to not just make your own personal commitment of voting and participating in this election. I want you to be an ambassador. There's no better messenger to your family members, to your colleagues, to your coworkers, to your leaders in your Muslim Student Association, to your fellow students than you. And you can tell them, Sister Linda told us, this is not an election of the lesser of two evils, that we have an opportunity and a commitment to alleviate some of the harm, some of the hemorrhaging of rights on those that we love in our communities. So again, I want you to go to mymuslimvote.org. I want you to sign up. I want you to join our efforts. I phone bank, I text all the time. It's very easy, sisters and brothers. We have an automated system where you can text Muslim voters across the country. It is a very effective, sometimes people will respond to you. Our Muslim community we just need to be engaged, and we need to be able to not just count on people doing the right thing, but encouraging and motivating and encouraging folks to do what they need to do. And as I said earlier, like I said, and I'm going to keep saying this to our community, sometimes the hardest thing that we need to do is the right thing to do. Sometimes the right thing to do is the hardest thing that we have to do. But we have to do the right thing, sisters and brothers. At the end of the day, our responsibility is to Allah's creation. Our responsibility is to the widows and to the immigrants and to the refugees and to those in poverty and those who are hungry and those who don't have housing, sisters and brothers. A lot of us, mashallah, the fact that we could even be on a computer right now, or we can be on an iPhone or on an Android and be able to even be in a virtual space together, we are already privileged. And alhamdulillah. When people ask me, sisters, I say, Sister Linda, how did you get up every day? How are you always so fired up? I just told you that I have not slept since the day before yesterday. I'm still fired up, sisters and brothers. When I'm walking around, when I'm breathing, sisters and brothers, I'm so grateful to be alive. And the way that I show my gratitude for being alive is trying to be a productive human being, trying to alleviate as much suffering as I can. I truly believe that participating in local elections and national elections are just one way, one very small way to alleviate some of the harm. We have to vote in the election with a mandate. We need a mandate. We can't just barely win. We have to win big. We have to remind people in this country that the majority of the American people are kind people, are compassionate people, are people who are committed to justice. That we are the American people. We need to show the rest of the world that we are a community that rejects anti-Black racism. We reject xenophobia. We reject Islamophobia. We reject anti-Semitism. We reject ableism and sexism and misogyny. That is who we are as a people. We cannot allow the very few, the very small number of people to continue to represent our values and for us to be the silent majority. I, sisters and brothers, will never, ever be part of the silent majority. Many of you know that I wrote a book that came out this year. It came out in the beginning of a global pandemic. And my book is called, We Are Not Here to Be Bystanders. I truly believe wholeheartedly in my heart. And the reason why I entitled my book, We Are Not Here to Be Bystanders, is because I believe as Muslims, Allah did not put us on this earth for us to be bystanders to injustice. I don't believe that, sisters and brothers. I believe that Allah and our example of our beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, has been very clear that we are to stand up against injustice, even if it's against our own parents and our own kin. That we are to be witness to bear witness to injustice and to be the purveyors of justice. that we are sisters and brothers, and you all know I got in trouble for this, and I'm going to end on this note because I'm going to end on a controversial note because I've been in this controversy many times before, but might as well go with it. Many of you know a few years ago I got in trouble for saying something that people deemed to be controversial. And it was a hadith that I had heard hundreds of times. I actually even heard Imam Khalid Latif say it many years ago at the Islamic Center of NYU. And the hadith was about a man who asked our beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, what is the best form of jihad or struggle? And our beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, said that the best form of jihad or struggle is a word of truth to a tyrannical ruler. And I want to remind you all, sisters and brothers, that you live in the United States of America. And here in this country, we have someone who is engaging in behavior of a tyrannical ruler, of a dictator, someone who dismisses the most impoverished, most marginalized, most heartbroken people in this country. And we have a duty as Muslims to stand up to our oppressors. And so I pray that Allah gives us the moral courage and the moral clarity in 2020. And I ask Allah, sisters and brothers, to protect you, to bless you and all those that you love. I ask Allah for you to find it in your heart that you find your role in this movement, that you find where it is that you can thrive and be productive to alleviate the harm and the injustice that happens every single day around us, inside of our Muslim community and outside of our Muslim community. I ask God to instill courage in your hearts so that you do not have to worry about being critiqued by any man or woman in and outside of our community, that you every day have the courage to do what is right because you are here to please Allah and only Allah, sisters and brothers. And that is why for me as a Muslim, my understanding of our deen is that we only fear Allah. So I do not fear Islamophobes. I do not fear critics. I do not fear oppressors. I do not fear headlines and newspapers. I do not fear any of these things because I don't live for those people. I don't live for these people. I live for Allah. I live to be an example to my children. I live to be an example for young Muslims in our community. And I truly believe wholeheartedly that I am trying and every day trying to emulate and to walk in the footsteps of our beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, who if he were alive today would be at the front lines of our environmental justice, immigrant rights movement, our fights for the sanctity of Black life. Our beloved Prophet would be on the front lines. Our beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, would be on the shores of our country demanding that they welcome the refugees as he himself was a refugee. So please, sisters and brothers, I welcome you all to join me in this election, to join us in this activism work, to be on the front lines, to participate in whatever ways that you can. Not everybody can be a frontline organizer, and I respect that. But we all have ways to donate to organizations in our community that are doing the good work. You can donate to the Islamic Center at NYU, who continues to be at the front lines of social services and important work in the New York City Muslim community. You can donate to us at empowerchange.org. We continue to build campaigns to fight against the Muslim ban, to register voters, and to build political power in our communities, to work on police accountability and racial justice work. So I am grateful for all the work that the Islamic Center and the leadership that they have shown, and I look forward to working with you. And inshallah, by the end of 2020, we will look back at this year and say, Allah tested us. Allah tested us a lot this year. But you know what? Inshallah, we will prevail on the other side, and that we will pass those tests that Allah has given us. So thank you, Islamic Center of NYU, for having me here today.
Jazakallah khair, Linda. Thank you so much. Are you feeling up to take some questions?
I'm always ready to go.
Great. So for those of you who are on the Zoom, if you want to put any questions that you have in the Q&A box, if you're watching on any of our other social media platforms, we're going to be prioritizing questions that are being asked via Zoom. And so if you would like to ask a question of Linda, definitely join the Zoom links. They should be in the captions on the social media platforms. We've also tried to put up some of the links that have been shared from the great work that MPower Change is doing. You definitely want to check out the links that have been shared. Get registered to vote. Look there for questions that you have, where you can join the phone bank that we're going to be doing through the IC in conjunction with MPower Change next week. please sign up for that and also help us spread the word to whoever you can, so that we can make sure that from start to finish, we're as engaged as possible. So Linda, just to start off, we had a question where someone was asking what you think are some of the top line issues Muslims have that they say that they want to see changed through this upcoming election.
I think what's very important, Imam Khalid, is that sometimes we make assumptions about what our community cares about. You know, we make assumptions about what the top line issues are. And as people, we've actually done surveys, and Kifah will be putting some of those links in there on some of the responses that we received. We had about 1,600 responses to our survey that we did, part of this group that we created, co-founded, called MSET, which is a Muslim Civic Engagement Table. You know, our community cares about many issues. We care about healthcare. We care about education. We care about ending unjust wars. We also care about national security reform and reforming the, you know, things like the terror watch list and the no-fly list. We care about hate crime legislation. We care about Palestine. We care about what's happening to Uyghur Muslims in China. We care about what's happening in Syria. So our community is just not a monolithic. We are not a monolithic community. We represent every ethnic and racial group around the world. And so that's why it's important for us not to ever say or claim that any part of our community only cares, or we all as a Muslims care about one or two or three issues. I think there are some issues that we have general consensus on in the Muslim community. And I think that's important to name. You know, we have a general consensus about standing with the plight of the Palestinian people. We have a general consensus in our community on things like healthcare, on immigration and comprehensive immigration reform, and of course on, you know, many issues around criminal justice reform. And so those were some of the things that we saw come out of this survey. I see some other questions, Imam Khalid, if you don't mind me going into them a little bit for some of our friends who actually pointed these out they're in the question and answer chat, because I think they're really important questions. Someone asked this question: what actual evidence do I have that voting against this current administration will make us better off and not less bad than we are now? And I think that's a really important question. And because of the work of many Muslims in our communities, and because of the work that we've done for a really long time, we were able to get this administration to make some public declarations. And I'm not saying by any means, all of you already know the drama that I got into minding my own business with this, with Biden and Harris campaign. So this is not an endorsement of any campaign. This is truly a call for us to defeat the current fascists we have in the administration. For us to be able to repeal the Muslim ban, you cannot underestimate the alleviation of the suffering and the pain of families who have been separated because of this Muslim ban. I will give everything that I have for a father and son to be reunited, for a mother and her child to be reunited. And I hope that all of my Muslim sisters and brothers are committed to the reunification of families. I am committed. I know that this next administration is committed to comprehensive immigration reform, to reinstating the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, which is a program for undocumented youth. I know that this administration this candidate, the Biden and Harris administration, have committed to the work around the no-fly list and the suspected terror watch list. You know, we have gotten this candidate to say, listen, I don't support the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement, but I will not legislate against people's right to engage in boycott, divestment, sanctions. That, sisters and brothers, is a very important position that we all need right now, that I will not get my freedom of speech, my constitutional rights infringed upon. And there are many, many other pieces of legislation around criminal justice reform, around ending cash bail. So we cannot say that our lives are going to be transformed. Your life will not be transformed by any of these two candidates. But what will happen is that if we defeat this current incumbent, yes, we will be able to alleviate harm. We will be able to reunify families. We will stop caging babies and separating them from their mothers at the borders. And that is very important right now. Harold was a friend of mine. He's a Jewish American activist and very, friendly and an ally to many Muslim communities. You know, supporting the My Muslim Vote campaign for me is supporting the Jewish vote. You know, there's an organization that we work very closely with in New York City called the Jewish Vote that has really put their Jewish values and their principles of justice and have shown up so beautifully as allies, standing up against Islamophobia and anti-Black racism and anti-Semitism. So us joining hands together you know, even engaging in potential collaborative efforts where we can do phone banking together, where we can do projects together around this election, just showing that this election has divided so many communities, but really we have the opportunity to bring our communities together. And someone, you know, asked this question, and it's an anonymous attendee. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. That's not who I am. But what I do want you, and what I am saying is I want you to vote against fascism. And it should be very clear to you when I say to vote against this administration that has committed harm, that you really have one other choice in this election. Now, if you live in states like New York or California, you are very lucky because you live in a totally blue state. And so you have the privilege of being able to do a protest vote or just to vote in local election. But again, if you live in states like Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina, Florida, Texas, Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, these are states where you are going to have to make a very hard decision. But I promise you, sisters and brothers, that it will be the right decision.
Thank you so much for that. Another question that we had for you was, what are your suggestions for how people can get involved during COVID and with the elections, being that November 3rd is not too far away? Do you have any advice or suggestions in that regard?
Absolutely. Listen, we are in a global pandemic. You know, I believe in the power of Allah. I believe in the power of just understanding that Allah is the best of protectors, sisters and brothers. You know, I've been on the street. I have been on the streets. I've been around a lot of people. I've been organizing, you know, not from my computer. I've been organizing on the sidewalks, on the streets, shutting down streets, you know, organizing and training protesters. And the reason why I say that is because I wear a mask. I protect myself. I wash my hands often. And Allah has protected me. And I know that, sisters and brothers, this election, I'm so worried about voter suppression. I'm so worried about massive, you know, absentee ballots and not knowing what the potential that could happen with this administration. So what I said earlier was, if you are an immunocompromised person, if you are an elderly person, you know, what I call a seasoned person in our community, if you are someone who is a person with disability, I am encouraging you to request your absentee ballots immediately. The deadlines are coming up. But if you are a person that is able, you are not immunocompromised, you are able to walk and go to a polling site, I highly recommend that on election day, you walk into that poll. You walk there with your back straight and your head held high, and with the intent to be able to tell generations to come that you were part of the story in 2020 of defeating fascists. So yes, there's a global pandemic, but sisters and brothers, do not allow a global pandemic to give us a fascist for 4 more years. There are ways for you to protect yourself. Wear a mask, wear gloves to the polling site. I'm sure that there's going to be sanitation and they're going to be doing a lot of different things, you know, stay away from people, 6 feet apart, all the different guidelines that will be provided to all of you. But please do not allow this pandemic to be an obstacle for you to participate in this election.
We also had a few people that were just asking more generally about MPower change and how MPower change functions. Do they work on a local level? And if so, do they work across the country on a local level? Is it only on national issues? And I think definitely everybody who's here could benefit a lot just from understanding what your vision was with MPower change, how it's grown, and what are some of the things that MPower change is involved in right now at every level of engagement. So maybe you could give us some insight on some of that, inshallah.
Absolutely. You know, I'm one of those person that, again, has a lot of faith in God. So back in 2015, I literally quit my job. I just called up my supervisor and I said, listen, I'm giving you a month notice. I really want to go and build something for my community. And so what I decided to do is bring about 25 Muslim American organizers and activists that I deeply respect in our community to a space together. And we talked about what are the gaps, what are the things that are missing in our Muslim American community. One of the things that we realized was in the digital era, in a time where a lot of the engagement is happening online, where a lot of the conversations are happening online, where a lot of the organizing was happening online, that we, the Muslim community, did not have a powerful online political voice. So we committed to building MPower Change. And MPower Change really is a grassroots social justice organization that is committed to ensuring that our voices as Muslim Americans are at the table. That when people are fighting for environmental justice and racial justice and immigrant justice, that we, the Muslims, are at the table, that our voices are at the table. We are one of the most sought out Muslim American organizations in the entire progressive movement. We saw ourselves as the Muslim version of MPower Change, of Move On, the Muslim version of Color of Change. We saw an opportunity for us to interject our voices in the Black Lives Matter movement, in the movement to welcome refugees and to support refugees here in this country, and to be able to put forth a voice that we can all be proud of. The MPower Change has a very large membership online. We're over 250,000 members across the country. We are not a membership based in the sense that nobody pays dues. You just go to empowerchange.org and you sign up. One of the feedbacks that I've gotten, Imam Khalid, about MPower Change is that people always say, I hate reading emails. I don't like when people send me emails, but for some reason, our emails have been very informative. They are very inspirational. You read our email and you're like, I'm ready to work. I'm ready to do. I'm ready to sign this petition. I'm ready to make a call to my member of Congress. Lots of people on the Hill know who we are. They call and say, I'm doing this action. I'm calling you to vote for this or don't vote for that, or to say that, because MPower Change or MPower Action, which is our C4 arm, because we are able to do some political lobbying work, or people have seen the rallies and events and town hall meetings. And I have trained hundreds of Muslims across the country. My team has trained hundreds of Muslims across the country. We've trained MSA leaders in organizing and building campaigns, building the capacity of our community to organize. And nobody, Imam Khalid, can tell me that they have not seen the progress in our community over the last 5 years. We have had exponential progress in the ways that Muslims are physically showing up in the movements that we're a part of, the way that we are unapologetically defending our communities and being seen as leaders in the larger movements that we're a part of. So MPower Change is both a nonprofit, tax-deductible organization, and we also have MPower Action, which is a C4 arm of our organization, which allows us to do more political work. So we welcome you to join us. When you sign up, you will get very important emails, action items. You will be kept up to date on what's happening in the movement. We are supporting, for example, one of the campaigns we're working on right now in collaboration with others is a campaign to free Usman. Usman is a Muslim African immigrant in New York who's being held in an immigration detention center. So we're able to sometimes work on individual cases, on legislative campaigns. So we just need you to join us. The more of us that are organized, that are informed, the more powerful we are and will be as a community. So you can donate to us at empowerchange.org. Your donation to our organization is tax deductible. If you want to donate to our C4 entities so that we can do much more of the political lobbying work that we do, which is also very important, you can contact us. You can contact me at linda@empowerchange.org.
Can you, just to follow up on that, can you explain why numbers bear impact on power dynamics? Where you're saying if more of us get involved, it's going to be a factor and variable in increasing clout. Because I think for many of us, you know, we kind of create paradoxes when we're trying to decide as to whether we should be engaged, whether we should vote, why would it make a difference? But I think that's a really critical point to understand that every individual's participation does actually make a difference. So if you can give us some insight as to why the more of us that are participating in all of these endeavors that, mashallah, you all are doing, and may Allah increase MPower Change and strength and capacity and make it a continued source of benefit for all of his creation. But why do numbers have the impact that you know, can yield us these results?
It's very simple, Imam Khalid. It's literally 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 equals mass mobilization. Politics is a mathematical problem. It is when an elected official who is in office figures out what the voting blocks are and how many votes there are out there. And let me give you a very important example that happened in 2016. In 2016, Senator Bernie Sanders wins the Michigan primary. It was a historic win. It was the first time or one of the biggest political upsets in American history. There was no way that Senator Bernie Sanders was supposed to win the Michigan primary in 2016. And what happened is because the Muslim vote, the Muslims got up and they voted their hearts out. What happened then in that same year in 2016 is that because Senator Bernie Sanders did not win the primary, Donald Trump won the state of Michigan by 10,000 votes. And I just want to be very clear, there are over 125,000 registered Muslim voters in the state of Michigan. Muslim voters in Michigan are swing voters. There's no question in my mind about it. There's no question in my mind or in the minds of the Biden campaign or the Trump campaign or any campaign that the Muslim vote is a very critical vote in a state like Michigan. So what I tell people all the time is when I organize and co-organize the Women's March on Washington, the reason why I have influence amongst progressives and the reason why I do have clout for myself and for the communities that I come from and for the issues that I care about is because we organized and the Women's March became the largest single day protest in US history. And so that means that it was because it was based on numbers. Some women could have said, you know what, I'm not gonna go to the Women's March. No one's gonna miss me there. No one's gonna even know that I didn't go. But because 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 became a mass mobilization. And as I finished my work and my term at the Women's March, I moved on to Untitled Freedom, which you know is the organization that I also organize with, that's in addition to MPower Change. Again, mobilizing. The reason why we have influence in the places that we go is because we're able to bring people together. We're able to engage numbers of people. So politics is about money and it's about votes. And the more Muslim Americans get up and vote, the more influence we will have on the issues we care about. Talking about and complaining on the internet does not yield any results for our community. But this is what I will tell you about politics is that when someone is running for office and they win and they can, you know that I can tell, I can go right now into the voter file, which is all public record. And I can look up Khalid Latif's name. And I don't know who Khalid Latif voted for. I don't know, but I will know when he voted. So I can tell whether Khalid is a triple prime voter, a double prime voter, or whether he sporadically votes or whether he doesn't vote at all. Just so you know, in the VAN, which is the Voter Activation Network, we have siphoned off Muslim surname last names. So all people have to do is run the Muslim surname list and they could actually figure out how many Muslims live in the particular districts in which they are running. So this is not something that is secret. Anybody can pull up Muslim names. Anybody can put in Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Middle Eastern names in the VAN and figure out who and where our communities are. So please, sisters and brothers, this is about math. And we have to be part of the formula of justice, but also we have to be committed to the long run, to the long term. And one last thing I'll say, Imam Khalid, is that numbers do matter. This election in 2020 primary, they said Ilhan was going to have a hard race, that she was vulnerable. Sister Rashida was vulnerable. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was vulnerable. Cori Bush, which is a dear friend of mine in St. Louis, Missouri, she was a BLM protester at the front lines of the Ferguson protest. They said there's no way that Cori Bush can win that election. These are all pro-BDS, pro-Palestinian women. These are women who are committed to immigrants, committed to Black people, committed to the climate. These are the kind of leaders we need in Congress. You know what happened, Imam Khalid? 1 voter plus 1 voter plus 1 voter went to the polls and showed the courage to vote for these sisters. And you know what? Not only did they go to Congress in 2018, they're going to Congress again. And now they will be joined by Cori Bush, one of the most magnificently brave women that you have ever met. And if anybody thought that Rashida and Ilhan and AOC were brave and courageous and bold, you have not met Cori Bush. And that's the kind of progress and why we need to increase our numbers in participation, especially when it comes to voting. And sisters and brothers, remember, this is not about just voting for Biden and Harris or voting against Donald Trump. I need you to look to the bottom of the tickets. You know, the Muslims say this, and I use this as a joke. They say, lower your gaze. And I say to people, when you get the ballot, I need you to lower your gaze. Look all the way at the bottom. Who's running for school board? Who's running for, you know, judgmentships? Who's running for city council, for ombudsman, and for many, many other local offices? So please don't just look at the top of the ticket. Look at the bottom of the ticket. And if you're not excited about the top of the ticket, why don't you start from the bottom? Start from the bottom and work your way up.
Amazing. Jazakallah khair. I'm going to make a few quick announcements, Linda, and then just ask you if you have any closing thoughts to share with everybody as we wrap up. We do have some really important things that we need all of you to write down and get on your calendars. On Monday, September 21st, inshallah, the IC is going to be doing with MPower Change, a phone bank at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time that you can sign up for at mymuslimvote.org/callingallmuslims. And if you're not comfortable getting on a phone, you don't want to make calls, there's an option to text bank as well. And the sign up is at the same place, mymuslimvote.org/callingallmuslims. If you want to check your voter registration or get a vote by mail ballot, you want to go to mymuslimvote.org/voting, where again, it's the same link to sign up for the phone banking. This coming Friday night, myself, Sheikh Aisha Prime, Sheikh Sahib Webb, Sheikh Fayaz Jafar, our Islamic Center staff, we're going to be doing another program that speaks about the importance of civic engagement, participation, how we can get ourselves ready as a community for this upcoming election cycle. So please do make sure that you're on that as well. And we're going to be highlighting some of these programs, the phone banking and other things that we have coming up as a part of that. That's going to be Friday night. It's going to be one of our monthly panels that we do with our staff scholars. So do check that out, inshallah. So Linda, if you want to close us out with just some final thoughts, we'd appreciate it.
I just want to say I'm in gratitude to you, Imam Khalid, and for your leadership and the leadership of all those at the Islamic Center of NYU, and for all of the members of the ICNYU who have stepped up for so many years, supporting us on so many issues and so many campaigns that I've worked on. You have all been incredible and amazing, and I know that there are so many new members of ICNYU, and I hope that you all know how lucky you are to be part of this beautiful community and family. I'll just end by saying that, you know, this has been a really difficult year. It's been a difficult year for myself personally. It's been a difficult year for us professionally. As you all know, one of the ways in which I'm able to organize in the Muslim American community is I was on the speaker circuit. So of course I would speak at different events for different organizations, you know, the Muslim Legal Fund of America, Islamic Relief, and other organizations in order to, you know, supplement the way in which I can show up and be on the front line. So it's been a difficult year on so many levels, but I also feel so hopeful about this year. I feel like we're being tested in so many ways. And I feel like we are going to come out of this on the other side, and we will prevail, and we will be able to not only defeat fascism, but defeat this pandemic that has taken so many people from our communities and our neighbors. I want you to join me in this election. Again, sisters and brothers, this is not going to be an easy thing to do. I'm not telling you that anybody that's running is your champion or anyone that's going to transform your lives. I'm asking you to choose an opponent. Choose your opponent, sisters and brothers. Who is it that you want to fight for our communities? I personally, sisters and brothers, do not want to fight a fascist anymore. I am on the front lines, and I'm telling you that your sister Linda is exhausted. I cannot fight this administration. I cannot move this organization left, nor can I move them anymore to the right. Give me an opponent that I can fight, sisters and brothers. Give me an opponent that I could build a political will and a movement to move them towards a better place for our communities. Let's see this as a stepping stone towards a longer process of organizing. Commit, sisters and brothers, to being part of this work for the long term. I am committed to that. I have shown and I have demonstrated to our community how committed and how much I'm willing to sacrifice. And all I'm asking you to do, sisters and brothers, is to give me an opponent that I can work with. So I'm asking you to join me in this election, to sign up at mymuslimvote.org/callingallmuslims. I get on those phones. I do texting too. I will never ask you to do something that I myself am not doing. So again, my gratitude to all of you. May Allah bless you all. May Allah bless Imam Khalid and his family and his beautiful children. May Allah bless all those staff at the Islamic Center of NYU and all the leaders. And may Allah bless you all and protect you all from all evil in this world, and protect all those that you love.
Barakallah Fiki, Sister Linda Sarsour. We definitely are all so grateful for you and the amazing work that you do. And I wish there were words to express the gratitude and appreciation. Please definitely let everybody on the ground in Kentucky know that we are making dua for them and praying for them, especially Breonna Taylor's family, the loved ones, the community there, as well as everybody on your team and the people that you work with. Our prayers and du'as are with each of you always. May Allah increase you in all that is good. May He make you MPower Change Until Freedom and every organization that is out there speaking truth to power for the sake of real justice, a means through which we have continued hope, strength, and real longevity to everything that we know is of benefit and this world is in need of. But thank you so much for all that it is that you do for all of us. I know that it must not be the easiest task, but we all do see you. And even if we're not standing with you, you are in our prayers at every prostration and in the late hours of the night. And if there's anything we can do to help support what you do, please do let us know and we'll do our best to be there for you. Again, definitely check out mymuslimvote.org. Make sure that you are participating in each of these campaigns. There's other stuff that you all know that we should be getting involved in and getting behind. Please definitely hit us up as well so that we can pass the word out on that. We're going to be sending out some info on the IC's email list and social media in the coming days about the phone banking for next week. We'd appreciate you all sharing that, as well as everything else that we've been circulating in the chat boxes here, the relevant links. But may Allah bless each and every one of you always and give to you and your loved ones only the best in this world and the best in the next. And may He make us a means through which this oppression and injustice stops. And I can tell you it's hard because we trickle it down to our own lived experience. I've sat with people in this world who live under regimes of just real oppression and real tyranny. I've looked into the faces of people who have been forced out of their homes, who have seen loved ones killed, burned alive, mistreated, and just lessened in terms of their dignity as human beings. And we're in a space right now where when I've gone to some of these places, people say when they've looked at this country that we're just a few steps away from the hate that it is that is plaguing the hearts of those that run those other spaces that trickle down to the impact that it's having on so many minority populations. And so it's not something to take lightly when our sister Linda says that our stand today is a stand against fascism, and our stand today is a stand that has to be on our principles and ethics that this religion tells us to be motivated and compelled by. Don't undermine the importance of your involvement and engagement. I pray inshallah ta'ala that Allah enables you to see the blessing that each one of you individually are and the unique role that you play in being a source of real benefit for all those who are around you. But please do, inshallah ta'ala, get involved in whatever way you can. And thank you for coming out tonight. Wallahu ta'ala alim wa billahi tawfiq. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu.